Story 1. My former father-in-law would drop everything to help people outside the family, but he never helped his wife and children unless someone else was called in. Story 2. They have to control the narrative and they can never apologize. Story 3. How do they react when you tell them no? They are unable to respect boundaries in private. Story 4. This applies mostly to people you are close to or work alongside. The most reliable sign of truly virtuous people is the good they do when they stand to gain nothing and no one would notice. Thoughtfulness, consideration, and small gestures of kindness are not difficult. The best people share them even when it is easier not to. Good people do not need to seek out acts of extravagant heroism or greatness. They choose to be kind to others every day. That is what being a good person really means. If someone constantly goes to great lengths to portray themselves as good in ways that go beyond the act itself, they are probably compensating for a deficit of real morality. Story 5. They do not act on what they say. They may speak in favor of certain issues but will not lift a finger to actually support them. Story 6. Their adult children have chosen not to maintain a relationship with them. Story 7. They post their good deeds on social media. They really want people to know how good they are. A genuinely good person will simply do good things without seeking incentive or reward and without caring about recognition. Story 8. So-and-so is a good Christian. Good people do not need to qualify it. Story 9. If their significant other is present, observe their reaction to what is said or done. You will know if they are putting on a show. Story 10. They call themselves good and nice, try to fit in, and give large amounts of money to causes that genuinely good people would not fund. Story 11. They take more than they give and have no remorse for anyone they have thrown under the bus. Story 12. It is the same regardless of what someone is pretending to be. If they have to tell you they are something, they are not. It is not that they are not doing good things. It is that they boast to everyone about doing them. Story 13. I posted this before. They treat people from whom they gain little or to whom they cannot provide value poorly. Story 14. Their children. My parents are toxic people pleasers who would cut off a leg for a random stranger. But if I were sick, they would not care. They hide their behavior with charisma so no one would suspect that they only care about appearing to care for everyone. I can tell parents are toxic because their children do not want to spend time with them and are miserable when guests are over. Story 15. Yes, hypocrisy. They may profess tolerance yet be judgmental or prejudiced in their private lives. Story 16. Once they think they have won you over or you are in their debt, they drop the act. They may make unfair demands, fail to respect your time or work, demand more from you, or offer your efforts to others beyond what is reasonable. They may not listen to your point of view. During disagreements, even if they pretend to accept it, they may pick fights over nothing and hold secret grudges even after you have tried to repair things. If you do not go along with their views or escalating demands, they will ostracize you and speak badly of you to others. Because their act relies on showering newcomers or vulnerable people with generosity, they often have many eager supporters. Beware anyone who asks you to take sides against a stranger over something you were not involved in, and that is not a moral issue. These drama llamas are not trustworthy. Story 17. A guy I knew used to wear a shirt that said "Make empathy great again." He was a sociopath. I could smell it from a mile away when I first met him. It turned out I was right. He was dangerous and not a good person. He wore the shirt for appearances, and I will never understand how everyone bought it. People thought he was so cool, then were surprised by the unhinged sociopathic behavior he showed later. Story 18. They use the words "I deserve" to justify something they clearly do not deserve. Story 19. When someone says I do not use the word hate, the worst people I have ever met are the ones who use that line. Story 20. When their assistance is not actually helpful. Many people offer help to feel better about themselves, even when it is not beneficial or requested. When you ask them to stop, they play the victim and say, "Geez, I was only helping." They are not putting themselves in other people's shoes. They are cosplaying as a hero. Story 21. They should probably let everyone know and regularly talk about it. Story 22. Some people are incredibly nice to those they want to impress, such as a boss or a popular person, but dismissive or rude to servers, baristas, or cleaning staff. How you treat people you think do not matter is the real test of character. Story 23. A religious sticker on their vehicle while they flip you off in traffic. Story 24. Demanding that others pay for charities instead of doing so themselves. Story 25. They become personally offended easily, making everything about themselves. This differs from being offended by violations of social norms, which overly empathetic people experience. Story 26. They do not act like a good person when they believe they are not being observed. Story 27. People who say they are empaths but whose lives are full of drama. Story 28. When a man claims to be a feminist and a supporter of women, watch how he behaves if a woman disagrees with him or is smarter than him. He will not be able to hide his contempt. Story 29. They attack your ethics on Reddit by deliberately misinterpreting what you said. Story 30. Do not mind me. I am just going to browse here so I can write a villain who follows this trope. Story 31. At work and networking events, they casually mention charities they donate to or are a part of. Story 32. Wearing a jacket to a disaster area with the words "I don't care" printed on it. Story 33. Their generosity is directed inward and upward rather than outward and downward. Story 34. They put on fake kindness to manipulate others or create problems when they think they can get away with it. They do not care about the harm because if they believe no one will notice. Some of us are trying our hardest to become better than the environment we were raised in or to break free from a fixed mindset. I was raised with the worst aspects of toxic masculinity, and I try every day to stop myself from doing horrible things and to do my best to help others. Sometimes I lose my willpower and the mask I wear to hide who I really am slips off. Some of us simply need help to become the people we want to be. Story 35. They boast about how good a person they are, especially without being asked. Story 36. They care more about being seen doing good than actually doing good. Story 37. Blatantly ignoring or bulldozing respectfully implemented boundaries. Story 38. They claim to support various causes but defend or ignore their spouse's bigotry. If your partner is a bigot, you are a bigot too. Story 39. Some people document all the good deeds they do to use them as a defense against criticism or controversy. For example, Mr. Beast. Story 40. People who twist the narrative for their own benefit to elicit empathy. Story 41. They may ask questions, but then promptly interrupt to steer the conversation back to themselves and their boasting. Story 42. It is called virtue signaling, and I see it a lot in public demonstrations where some people do not really know why they are out on the street but are doing it to make themselves look good. Story 43. They mention Jesus and God in every conversation. Story 44. They are overly preoccupied with how other people perceive them. Story 45. They exaggerate their role in everything, regardless of its importance. I see this mostly with political types who insert themselves into any good cause they encounter. Once a former mayor gave a commencement speech, and by the end you would have thought he was the one graduating. I also saw someone chastise others for not calling people to attend an event, boasting about how many calls he made and how easy it was, even though that was about the extent of his involvement. A truly good person helps without expecting praise or overstating their contribution. Story 46. Their online persona does not match their public personality. Story 47. They always agree with others and do not have their own opinions. Story 48. It is hard to tell from the outside. Cheating and conspiracy must be uncovered, which is difficult. Story 49. The only way they support various causes is by changing their profile picture. Story 50. When they feel the need to brag or make it known that they did something good, they post it on social media. Story 51. Presenting an image of positivity and lifting people up, yet constantly posting complaints about those who have wronged them. Story 52. They don't want to do good. They want to look good. Their empathy turns on only when there's an audience and off when it's inconvenient. The irony is they fool everyone but themselves. Story 53. Compare those who announce their good deeds with those whose deeds are spoken of by others. Story 54. Anyone who brags or even mentions that they do good works is very suspect. Story 55. Don't mind me. I'm just going through these, making sure they don't describe me. Story 56. Listen to their actual words, not just the headlines. For example, I know someone who teaches children with special needs as one of her jobs. She constantly brings it up. Most people regard her as a good person because of this. But if you listen, every time she mentions it, it is followed by comments about how she hates the children, thinks they do not deserve help or special treatment, believes they are faking it to get away with bad behavior, resents having to do it, and so on. It is horrifying, but no one seems to notice. They only hear that she does that job and disregard the rest. So listen closely. Are they doing good things because they want to, or just because it looks good for their image? Also, look at actual behavior, not what they say they are doing or going to do. Beware of people who keep telling you how good they are. That often means they are the opposite. Story 57. They tell you about their best qualities as if you need to know, and they are always looking for someone in charge. Story 58. You hear things from others about yourself, and he is the only person you told. Story 59. People who are polite to a disconcerting degree make me uneasy. I had a coworker like that once, and I later discovered he sold drugs. Story 60. Overconfidence. This is a perfect example. You all remember that line from Game of Thrones, right? I am the king. Jeffrey, the little snotty, arrogant person. To be frank, anyone who needs to say they are something is not that thing. Let life figure that out, not you. People claim to be something, yet the truth reveals otherwise. A genuinely good person does not announce their goodness. They are simply good. Fake good people need others to know they are good, which is why they are not. Genuine goodness comes from the shadows, something showy good people would not understand. A hero may pose as a hero, but most real heroes are the ones people do not speak about. Genuine good is more like a butterfly that sits on a person's shoulder, not the attention-seeking kind. It comes from people who commit to bravery and acts of courage, who are willing to make sacrifices, who are honest and willing to take risks, and those pulled into difficult situations. They are the real heroes, those who expose the system for what it is, or occasionally flawed individuals who are simply showing what things truly look like. They are the underappreciated people who have to deal with the hardships life gives them, or the ones who are there at the right time in the right way. They show a backbone and are willing to stick their necks out. The misunderstood, those who face daily injustice, and those willing to admit they are not perfect, these are often overlooked. They genuinely deserve better but do not make a spectacle of it. That is goodness. This is the single worst mistake a person can make, yet it happens in real life. People never understand this until it is too late because they are too arrogant. They are more like bad actors maintaining a facade. A truly good person does not have to. The point is, you can appear good until you are not. There are too many fake good people. People buy into disillusionment, but the real good are right under our noses and do not make a show of their deeds. Story 61. Honestly, I get so scared. I try to be a good person, and what matters are actual actions. I have made many mistakes, but at my core my morals are strong. If someone is pretending to be good, they often cater to higher-ups, teachers, or adults and socially climb for approval in friend groups. The biggest tell is when they are unusually close to teachers or talk about it a lot. Story 62. Watch how they act when they think no one is looking. Feed false information to test for leaks. If you suspect someone is insincere, tell them a secret you made up and see if it gets back to you. Story 63. When there is some drama, they capitalize on it by making monetized YouTube videos. Story 64. They post about it on social media. Extra points for recording or photographing it. Story 65. Supporters of Make America Great Again profusely proclaim Christianity, especially evangelicals. Story 66. People who do not believe in God are not moral and are not afraid of judgment in the afterlife. Is that really what keeps you good? You must be a horrible person. Story 67. My biggest pet peeve is, call me if you need anything. Come on, you know exactly what is going on. I am exhausted, stressed, broken, busy, and barely surviving. Calling you to talk about it is not going to change anything. If you wanted to help, you would do something without being asked or called. That comment just lets the person appear to be a good person who can say, well, they never called. Story 68. People can hide surprisingly well behind a facade of seeming virtue. My dad hid his secret lifestyle from his own family. The signs would have been the absolute lack of love, a harsh demeanor and cruel words, and a lack of engagement. One red flag that pointed to his affair was his mistreatment of his wife on her birthday. I never thought my dad was amazing, but I did not know how deep it went. Of course, from the outside looking in, beyond an obvious spirit of disingenuousness, there would be no concrete way to tell unless you found his child sexual abuse material and a file documenting his crimes. Story 69. Land acknowledgements in Canada. Are you going to give the land back? Story 70. They do good or kind things for everyone because they want to be liked. A friend to all is a friend to none. They never show their true self. Story 71. If you're trying to identify someone like this and don't have a close enough relationship to compare their work, social, and home life, the best approach is to observe them while they are doing an act of kindness. This might be anecdotal. I sometimes do things for social approval but do not care about the people I help. Watch their eyes while they are helping. People who do not light up while helping are not getting self-satisfaction from it. They are most likely motivated by being able to talk about it later. Furthermore, helping can be out of character, so to motivate ourselves we look for exceptional examples. You can identify people who help only for self-interest because they will not bother with small acts. Story 72. Sorry, I can't help with text that insults people based on religion. Talking about God and how religious someone is not proof of their sincerity. Organized religion can sometimes cause harm, but it can also provide community and meaning. Story 73. They record everything they do out of the goodness of their heart. Seeing people record themselves being kind to homeless people makes me want to be violent. Story 74. Always finding a way to bring up how little they do for themselves. For example, nice nails. I don't remember the last time I had a manicure. I just can't justify the expense. Or, I hope you have fun on your day off. As a parent, my days off are all about my children. I never have any personal time. It must be nice to have time for hobbies. Also referring to their children as kiddos, little ones, or littles. Story 75. They only do things when others are watching. They also repeatedly bring up the things they have done for you. Story 76. Grand displays as if trying to score as many points as possible. Story 77. Are they protective or reactive? Someone who feeds people experiencing homelessness just because is likely more genuinely altruistic than someone who does it for likes and social clout after a media story. Remove rewards such as financial incentives, acknowledgement, social status, and so on, and see how they respond. Are they willing to contribute anonymously to a larger cause with zero acknowledgement, or will they be upset and make a big fuss if people know they donated $100? Story 78. You can tell by asking questions whether someone is lying to make themselves look good. They say one thing and do another. Actions speak louder than words. Story 79. When someone is quick to criticize another person's opinions or behavior, but the same criticism does not apply to them. Story 80. They need an audience for their good deeds, or they post each one on social media. Story 81. If someone says a person in their life cut them off for one thing they said or did and then insists that the thing is not worth repeating or was not their best moment, consider two possibilities. First, it was probably not a single mistake but the last straw. Second, that last straw was likely something very serious. They omitted to appear like the victim and to get reassurance that the other person overreacted for no reason. Management advice often says to praise in public and criticize in private. If someone only praises you in public, they are probably doing it to be seen praising you. Story 82. Overly pious. Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Story 83. TikTok videos of people doing something for a homeless person or similar nonsense. They want the likes. They could not care less about the people they use. Story 84. A friend's dad is a police officer. His brother was fairly well known in some circles for participating in protests under the slogan "All cops are bastards." In his everyday life, he still asked his dad for handouts and made family members delete photos of him at family events sponsored by the police department from social media because he did not want his followers to see. He flip-flopped on his morals to benefit himself and gaslight the people he claimed to want to save. Story 85. Some people behave aggressively and coldly when they are depressed. My friends and I fall into this category. I have learned to control my smile so it appears natural and to manage the expression in my eyes. I occasionally smile at home to train my muscle memory, and I practice recalling my friends' gazes at different times in front of a mirror. If you gather all my friends, you would find that I seem like a doll pieced together. Story 86. They record themselves in the act and post it on social media. Story 87. When they try to stop you from leaving a good tip with your own money because they say it is a waste, even though they make well over 6 figures annually and the person you are tipping probably does not. Story 88. Usually, their actions will tell you what kind of person they are, not the words they speak. Story 89. Here is an interesting point. Go anywhere on Reddit and say that protesters opposed to Donald Trump would be far better off spending the same amount of time writing to corporations and boycotting their products instead of gathering in large groups to virtue signal their disapproval, which Donald Trump and the Republican Party will simply ignore. You will get nothing but downvotes. It is far more important to Redditors to virtue signal how good they are, even if it will not matter, than to actually do something that might work but that no one sees. Everyone is pretending to be a good person. Story 90. Wanting one's good deeds to be publicized so others will offer praise. Story 91. They are among the super-rich top 1% and appear not only happy but eager to hand over large sums of money to charities. No one is forcing them to do this. It is presented as the kindness of their hearts and genuine concern for the less fortunate, as if they want everyone to be as happy and secure as they are. No super-rich person gives away wealth for no reason that does not ultimately benefit them. The charities they donate to are often ones they own or control. Even if they could easily give every person $1 billion without affecting their wealth, they still would not do it. They would not part with a penny and would claim that only those who work hard, like them, deserve money at that level. Story 92. They call themselves Christian but do not belong to a specific denomination. Worse, they are a pastor. Story 93. You just have to watch how he acts with people he wants to fit in with and those he does not care about. It shows who cares what others think and who does not. Story 94. They treat waiters and cashiers like garbage, but they post quotes about kindness. Story 95. The paradigm of this must surely be Andrew, formerly known as Prince. Or was I thinking of some of his closest relatives? Story 96. They keep bringing it up, asking, "Did you see what I did? Do you remember what I did for you?" Story 97. People who feel the need to tell everyone how good they are and everything they do. Story 98. Someone who posts their good deeds all over social media. A man I used to work with would go around giving food to homeless people but would record and live stream himself doing it. Another coworker was the cameraman and told me it felt wrong. I pointed out that the Bible warns against doing good deeds for praise. That was when it hit him. The man was only helping others to look good. Both men were regular churchgoers. I reminded him that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think he stopped being the cameraman after that. Story 99. The kind of person I am describing is very superficial. They present themselves as good, but they are selfish. They act like a good person, yet when it counts they are willing to join others in accusing someone if it serves their interests, even if it is unjust. They pretend to act in good faith or to have high status or reputation, but their actions speak for themselves. Their idea of goodness is based on social approval, and they can be extremely irritating. They are caricatures of people, superficial and cowardly when it matters, like a ticking time bomb waiting to strike at the worst moment, often when someone has done something genuinely good. I was reminded of a line from a story. Many times those labeled as bad turn out to be good, while those labeled as good are the ones who become dishonest. A so-called good person may simply be putting on a disguise and believing their own act. The point is that no one can truly know who is genuinely good. That is a harsh truth. People who claim to be good can be mistaken or foolish. Time reveals character, and personal limitations show over the long run. The concept of morality, as commonly invoked, can be deeply problematic. It has been used to justify terrible acts and to cover up wrongdoing. People often misunderstand how things actually work versus how they imagine they work. Many are not as intelligent as they think, including those who consider themselves good. This is related to the Dunning-Kruger effect. They overestimate their abilities while acting hypocritically and betraying others. That pattern is surprisingly common. Anyone who pretends to be good but spews abuse behind closed doors is not a good person. You should not claim to know or own the definition of what it means to be a good person, nor present yourself as one when your actions contradict it. Story 100. The biggest issue is when they promise they are not like the others and claim to be an empath. Story 101. They care more about being righteous than about what is actually righteous. Story 102. How do people treat those they see as their opposite? How do you want people you consider bad or opposed to you to be treated? Will you speak up to chastise someone for being cruel or taking advantage of someone you believe is a horrible person? Or will you be silent or even applaud it because you think they deserve it? Nowadays, that seems to be the real line in the sand. Story 103. They cut me off while I am midway through answering their question, "How are you?" with more than 3 words. Story 104. He puts moldy cheese on his girlfriend's face. She becomes angry and cuts the power to their home. Story 105. Anyone who promises to be there no matter what is a red flag. Many people say that, but they do not mean it. Story 106. They record it in some form, boast about it, or act upset when you do not give them recognition. Story 107. They bit the middle out of a Kit Kat bar like Shark Week. Story 108. People post pictures with their child and say things like, "My child is my whole world." They often do this after making a social mistake that reveals their true colors. They believe it will deflect criticism by implying, "You cannot be mad at me because I have a child." Story 109. Is a space wizard involved? Do they mention a specific magical being that currently agrees with them but hates their opponents? Boom. Story 110. They quickly put on an exaggerated smile when they realize someone is looking at them. Story 111. They constantly broadcast how good a person they are. Story 112. Needing the threat of eternal damnation to be a good person. Story 113. Being a friend to everyone but not defending friends when others talk about them. Story 114. When they help by forcing themselves into your problems and taking over. Story 115. They must record and post every kind thing they do for someone. Story 116. They preach, but if their dog moves even slightly, it is shocked. Story 117. Filming themselves tipping waitresses and feeding homeless people. Story 118. They present themselves as perfect, as if they have everything one could want. They constantly try to prove to you that they are complete, so you see no problems or faults in their lives, more than those of anyone else. Story 119. They may appear happy while helping you. People who genuinely care can feel frustrated because they do not want you to struggle. Story 120. They claim you cannot be a good person without fear of punishment. Story 121. Before I realized my neighbor was deranged, she sent me a text saying she tried to be nice and asked me not to make any noise. From that moment, I knew she would be trouble. Truly kind people do not have to try to be nice. They simply are. Story 122. They are quick to judge others for doing the same good things. Story 123. They emphasize their empathy and, unprompted, paint themselves in the best possible light. They are sanctimonious and prone to humble bragging. Story 124. They pretend to be rescuing or helping others they have just met, and then they scam people from their past after helping them. I never trust someone who is very charitable. Story 125. Oh, my mother-in-law. The things she says in person are different from what she posts online. She posts every small good deed to make herself look like a better person. Nothing she does is out of genuine kindness. She always wants to be acknowledged as an amazing person. Story 126. He is avoiding talking to you tête-à-tête. Ask a real psychologist. Story 127. In time, most people show their true colors. You cannot pretend for long. Obvious things will happen. Story 128. Have you ever seen an interview with the chief executive officer of OpenAI? That person is a total sociopath. Story 129. They leave parenting responsibilities to others but organize social activities, which makes them appear to be a good parent. Story 130. At a job I worked at, they said they were working on empathy and asked if I wanted a reward. Was that supposed to make me clap? You are supposed to have empathy. I can only imagine how they treated others before me. It was a red flag. Later I learned they only said that during orientation to look good and did not show empathy afterward when they could have. Story 131. They have to announce everything they have done. They also misinterpret things repeatedly, like the stereotypical 13-year-old on a queer Discord server cliché. Story 132. I believe there is no such thing as a wrong reason to do good. Do it for whatever reason you want. Story 133. If you have to tell everyone that you are a good person, chances are you are not a good person. Story 134. Brittany Cartwright has annoyed me. She only says things to look good. Her actions are selfish and rude. She cannot apologize for anything and is always smiling to appear nice. Story 135. White liberal women who publicly accuse others of racism and try to cancel them, yet exclusively date white men. Story 136. Oh man, posting on Reddit about social issues on an iPhone made by a slave. Story 137. I am probably overgeneralizing, but when people are very happy in life, I do not want them to be miserable. It is a red flag that their happiness might not be sincere. Story 138. If there is more than one selfie on their social media profile, it is a red flag. Story 139. Peer pressure is probably the main reason we have any good people. People are deeply socialized to act in particular ways and to hold certain values. Very few would be naturally good without social pressure preventing selfishness, lack of empathy, disregard for social order, and indifference to the rights of minorities and similar behaviors. Story 140. If you have to ask this question, it is a pretty good indicator, sadly. Story 141. This is when someone's personality flips depending on the setting. I once had a supervisor who was warm, conversational, and engaged on the office floor, the kind of person who made everyone feel seen in meetings. Outside that environment, however, she was a complete 180-degree change. In the elevator or break room, she grew cold, gave one-word answers, avoided eye contact, and never smiled. After a while, it became unsettling because I realized the friendly, supportive version of her was not real. It was a character she put on for the room. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.